Good afternoon, everyone. We welcome you to the joint webcast between EY and IVCA on Make in India CapEx growth agenda. With India moving towards becoming self-reliant or Atmanirbhar, the overall industry is looking at now setting up factories in India, both on the foreign companies side as well as the Indian companies. In order to promote the said agenda, the Indian government, both on the central side and on the state side, offers multiple incentives. Today in the webcast, I have been joined by my colleague partner Kunal Chaudhary and Bhavesh Thakkar, and we'll be taking you through the various parts of the various incentives which central and state government is offering. Next slide, please. So when we look at production linked incentive scheme, which is the buzz of the town today, which is a direct fiscal incentive being offered by the central government, the intent of the production linked incentive scheme has been to move from make in India to made in India. And when I say make in India to made in India means make in India was when Indian government was focused on assembly and the technology was there at the foreign level. Today, Indian government is talking about bringing technology to India, and therefore it is moving towards by far made in India, which will lead to a lot of backward integration happening, and the ripple effect of the same will be seen in that one. By virtue of the same, they have introduced production-linked incentive scheme to encourage domestic manufacturing, make India's manufacturing as a world-class manufacturing hub for the export market, and ensure that there is an import substitution which is happening. With this particular vision in mind and the Atmanirbhar Bharat, a self-reliant India, the PMO gave this charge to Niti Aayog to curate the policies around this particular initiative. And Niti Aayog thereafter done industry consultation and did involve the relevant nodal ministries to take charge of these policies. Pursuant to the rollout of these policies by the relevant ministries, it will be handed over to a project management agency who in turn will overall drive this scheme from an implementation standpoint. So effectively, 4 stakeholders which are involved in this scheme so far. Total scheme is available for 13 sectors. The thrust is on these particular 13 sectors so far, wherein the government is giving direct fiscal incentives ranging from 2% and going up to maybe 10% of your incremental sales value as an incentive. The important point is, even if you are eligible, it doesn't mean that you will be entitled to the incentives. Government will look after and set forth various criteria wherein who is committing the highest investment, who is committing the highest scale up, who is committing the highest value addition, and who is ready to do exports from India. With all combinations put together, the scheme will get awarded to you. Next slide, please. If we talk about the overall CapEx growth agenda, within the CapEx growth agenda, broadly, there are 3 pillars which are important. While PLI being the buzz of the town and we all being aware about PLI and the objectives behind the same, it is also important to understand that both state and central government offers other incentives as well. Every state in India, because we are a federal economy wherein both state and center participates into the investments and the overall economy. Accordingly, each state in India has their own set of state industrial policies through which they grant incentives to the investments made into their state. Followed by which there is another policy of the government which is called as Manufacturing and Other Operations in Bonded Warehouse Regulation Scheme 2019, hereafter being referred as MOVER, under which central government is offering deferment of BCD and GST. Saying so, what we have done in this chart to start with is to give you some flavor around what these incentives mean to you or to the investors when we talk about a percentage of clawback from the government. So as we were talking about PLI depending on sector to sector is offering you an incentive of 2.25% to 10% on the incremental sales which you are making. However, in the auto PLI, and we'll be talking about it in specifics in the subsequent slide, in auto PLI, primarily the incentive is linked to incremental export sale only, and the concentration is not on the overall sale. The clawback under the PLI schemes can range from 25% and can go as high as 500% also. But of course, the 500% PLI, which was offering a clawback, was only mobile PLI scheme, which of course has been done and dusted, and the sanction orders have already been issued. So typically all other PLIs which are still continuing, they are offering the clawback in the range of 25 to 300% of your investment in plant and machinery. When we talk about state industrial policies or state incentive schemes, the states are getting so competitive between each other that today they are offering multiple type of concessions to the industry to attract them into their states. Now, from that standpoint, the first and the foremost thing which becomes important is a capital subsidy. So states like Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, they offer a capital subsidy in the range of 10% to 25% of the investment made in the state. Of course, in certain cases, land value is being excluded and admin building is also getting excluded when they compute the eligible fixed capital investment. Of course, my colleague Bhavesh will talk about in detail about these schemes. Concessional land, stamp duty exemption, power tariff concession, and GST linked subsidy are the flavors of state incentive. The clawback can range from 25% to 125% of the investment made. Saying so, these things may not be always written in the policy. In certain state policies, they'll be writing that wherever the project qualifies as a mega project or ultra mega project or a super mega project, in such cases, you can go for a tailor-made package or customized package or so-called as bespoke package by negotiating the incentives with the state government. Coming to the last one is around the mover scheme, which offers a BCD deferment of 8.25% on imported capital goods required for setting up of manufacturing in India. Similarly, a GST deferment of 19.5% on imported goods, which resultantly comes into a working capital impact of approx 2 to 3 years for the industry, because you can take the GST credit, but you cannot utilize it over a period of time because you'll have a gestation cycle of the project, and thereafter you will also have raw material credits as well. And of course, we'll be talking about this particular subject in detail. Saying so, there will be certain industries which are under an inverted duty structure under the GST regime, or are exempted from GST, or are non-taxable under GST, where this GST deferment will be a big time cost, a big time saving per se. The total clawback, if we have to look at from all these three incentives put together, can range from 50% and can go up to 450% of the investments which you are making in India. Next slide. In order to give you all a flavor as to how Indian and foreign investors were reacting to this PLI scheme, I thought that I will spend maybe a minute or 2 minutes time on what happened in the three policies which have been released and the sanction orders which have been issued. Primarily mobile policy, medical drug policy, and medical device policy. Multiple applicants applied under the mobile policy. Only 10 mobile phone players got the benefit of the scheme. I think 14 applied or 15 applied, and out of which only 10 mobile phone manufacturers got the benefit of the scheme. Under the medical drug policy, 215 applications were filed. 83 pharma manufacturers filed under this particular policy. But the overall, if we talk about, it will not be more than 20, 22 people who have got the benefit of the scheme, which means that there is an intense competition when it comes to applying for these schemes and getting the benefits. Similarly, under the medical device scheme, if we look at 28 applications were filed by 23 manufacturers, and so far only 9 applications have been approved. So there is a stiff competition between the foreign investor as well as the Indian investor to get the benefits out of the PLI scheme. Next slide, please. So if we look at the overall gamut of the sectors for which the policy has either been rolled out as on date, but sanction orders have not been issued, or the application window is still open, those are highlighted in the yellow box on this particular screen. And the other schemes where the policy is still to be rolled out are in the gray boxes in the screen with the budgetary limits against each of them. So total budget allocation has been 1,97,000 crores on these 13 sectors, of which around 50,000 crores have already been allocated under the 3 sectors which we talked about. The balanced budget allocation is before you guys on the screen. Now, these 5 policies which are in yellow box, the details are already out. In certain cases, both policy and the guidelines are out, whereas in other cases, only policy is out. So my colleague Kunal will be talking about each of these policies in detail as to what all benefits it offer, what is the eligibility, by when you need to file the application, so on and so forth. I'll be concentrating more around what we are hearing around those 5 policies which are still not rolled out. Of course, the government wanted to roll out majority of these policies by 31st March or 30th April, but if, with the COVID environment and various things happening in India, some of these policies have been installed and maybe likely they will be rolled out by 31st May. So I'll go each of these policies specific. Auto and auto component, one of the sectors which has got the maximum budget allocation out of the PLI scheme. 57,000 crore or $7.7 billion have been allocated towards auto and auto component, with the intent of the government being to promote exports from India, because anyways today auto and auto component is comprising around 14% of India's GDP. We have a large consumer market, so the focus of the government today is to promote exports from India as far as auto sector is concerned. There were talks, there were public media news around that the fact that there will be 4 schemes in the sector. The fact is what we are hearing is that there will be only 2 schemes, which will be vehicle champion and component champion scheme, under which they will be offering incentives ranging from 6% to 9%, with some additional 2% incentive if you achieve a certain threshold. There will be a R&D incentive from 2% to 3%. There will be an EV incentive in case you are going into electronic vehicles with an incentive of around 5%. That's what we have been hearing on the auto space. Of course, the policy is still awaited. From an eligibility standpoint, we are hearing that there will be eligibility requirement for an OEM, 10,000 crore of turnover in FY 18-19, whereas a gross block of fixed assets of 3,000 crore as on 31st March 20. On the component side, 500 crores of turnover as on FY 18-19, with a gross block of 150 crores as on 31st March 20. And the new entrants. For the new entrants, it will be likely a net worth of 1,000 crore when you are filing the application, with a committed investment of 2,000 crore from your side for next 5 years. Moving to advanced chemistry cell. So again, electronic vehicles has been the buzz of India. And overall, the government has been taking all the actions possible to promote electronic vehicles and move towards greener energy options. With this requirement, overall government is focusing on this particular scheme to set up a manufacturing facility of around 50 gigawatt hours of advanced chemistry cell battery in India. When we say advanced chemistry cell, it's a lithium ion battery when we talk about. The scheme is for manufacturing cell. Of course, you can have battery pack also manufactured over there. This is a scheme different than many other schemes. It will be a bid-based approach. The draft RFP is already in public domain. They released it in somewhere around November 20, if I'm not wrong. And thereafter, they invited public comments on the same. The incentives can range as high as 20% of the selling price of battery. But there is a requirement of minimum investment of 225 crores per gigawatt, and with a minimum 5 gigawatt hour of facility which you are required for opting under this particular scheme. The person who goes for a highest scale up means whosoever scales up faster, thereafter who commits the highest value addition and commits the lowest incentive will be awarded the bids under this particular scheme. This scheme, compared to other, also offers a tripartite arrangement between the investor, central government and the state government, with a single point nodal officer who will help you in coordinating with all your land and other clearances required for setting up the facility in India. The important point of this scheme is that it requires a 60% value addition by the 5th year of operation. This is very important because it's difficult to meet 60% value addition in this particular sector, but it's very clear that you are required to meet 60% value addition as we talk today. When we talk about textile and textile sector, the scheme is more focused on man-made fiber and technical textile products, which is likely to cover products such as anoraks, wind cheater, shirts of man-made fiber, gloves, mitten. On the technical textile side, as adhesive dressing, safety airbag with isolator system, wedding gauze, etc. The incentives which are likely to be offered in this scheme are 3% to 11% of the incremental sales, whether domestic or exports, but there will be a minimum investment commitment of 500 crores to 400 crores, depending upon whether it is a greenfield or a brownfield project. On the specialty steel side, while there has been a lot of industry consultations which has been done, the intent of specialty steel is to get those products manufactured into India where we are still importing. So we are one of the largest exporter or global manufacturer of steel products. But when it comes to high grade steels, such as auto grade steel or American grade steel, we are still continuing to import from outside India. So a steel up to $600, $650 per ton is getting manufactured, but still we are importing steel which is costing $2,000 to $2,500 per ton. The focus of this scheme is to promote these type of steels. Saying so, it's still government wants to promote exports of the low grade or a medium grade steel which India is manufacturing, and they are offering incentive even to that type of steel. The incentives which are likely to be offered under this scheme are 3% to 9%, depending upon three categories which the government is looking at. But saying so, whatever we are hearing is that there are a lot of deliberations which are undergoing on this particular scheme as to what will be the product coverage, which product categories should get the benefit of scheme, so on and so forth. So expect a lot of changes when it comes to specialty steel compared to what I'm talking about. High efficiency solar PV modules. So when we talk about high efficiency solar PV modules, the renewable energy, again, somewhat linked to advanced chemistry cell also, because some of the batteries will be required in the renewable space as well. Under the high efficiency solar PV modules, looking into the renewable requirements, renewable energy requirements of the country, and the fact that we continue to import solar PV modules from outside India, the Indian government is offering incentives in the form of PLI scheme, which will range from 2.25% to 3.75% of the incremental sales overall for the manufacturing of solar PV modules in India. This will require a backward integration. So it has to be a cell plus module, or it has to be a wafer plus cell plus module facility, or it has to be a polysilicon plus wafer plus cell plus module facility, which you have to look at. The investment requirement under this particular PLI will also be quite huge, and it will again be a bid-based PLI similar to that of advanced chemistry cell, wherein they will be offering the scheme benefit to those players who will be committing the highest efficiency of the PV module, the highest value addition in India, and thereafter the lowest incentive. The minimum bid is for 1 gigawatt of the project, and the maximum bid is of the 2 gigawatt of the project. What we are also hearing is that the incentive will be offered only on the 50% of the capacity. So which means that when I talk about 1 gigawatt means you have to necessarily set up a 2 gigawatt facility. And when I say maximum 2 gigawatt, you will be required to set up a 4 gigawatt facility. So that's broadly around what the PLI schemes have to talk about, which have not been released. With this, I'll hand it over to my colleague Kunal Chaudhary to take you through some of those schemes which have been released so far. Over to you, Kunal.
Sure. Thanks, Saurabh. We'll start with, there are 5 schemes, in addition to the 3 which got closed last year. There are 5 new schemes which have come in. There is only guideline which have come in only for 1, but balance 4 we've got cabinet approvals, and guidelines are expected shortly. I think the first one is on the telecom products. This scheme got notified sometime back in February. The guidelines are expected to be released sometime this week. Most likely by Friday or early next week. And we may have time to file applications, at least till end of May, if not June, for this scheme. So this scheme primarily, the budget for this scheme is around 12,000 odd crores. And it is primarily for manufacturing of telecom, 4G, 5G equipment, and the new age IoT equipment. Here as well, the maximum incentive which can be assumed or which can be obtained is can go up as high as 3.2 times what you invest, and it is also a percentage of sales. It starts from 6% in the year 1, and then it goes up to 4% in the year 2, and then in the year 5. There is additional 1% which they've this government wants to give to MSME. So there is a 1% additional which goes to the MSME sector. So quite lucrative. A lot of discussions going on right now as it is a very highly R&D oriented industry. Very discussions going on how government can include R&D spend in what the investment is. It can be given to both greenfield, bluefield project. So any even expansions are covered in this scheme. Bhavesh, we can go to the next one. Yeah. So the calculation mechanism for the scheme, is an incremental. They've given a slab of how much investment they will count every year. So assumingly if 100 crores are invested in year one, then are invested or is the committed investment, then you can you get 20%. So they have given a slab of 20, 40, 70, and 100 in year 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the maximum incentive which you can get is 20 times that investment, depending on your sale, of course. But that's the maximum. So if over and all, I think the base case is that it's a very lucrative scheme. Incentive goes up to 3.2 times, 3.2 times the total investment. Yeah, Bhavesh, we can go to the next one. Yeah. The next one is on the IT hardware space, which got launched sometime way back in March. The guidelines got a little delayed, so the date was extended. The last date for this scheme is 30th of April. So only 2 days left for this scheme. It also has a huge budgetary outlay of around $1 billion, and they want to incentivize 5 global and 10 domestic companies. Unlike the telecom scheme, in the current scheme, they have slabs provided. So there are 2 slabs which can be one is for the international players, which is a 500 crore investment, and the second one is a slab for the domestic company, which is a 20 crore investment. And then incentive for the Indian companies go up to as high as 5 times or 6 times the capital spent. So if you invest around 20 crores, the highest incentive you can get is around 125 crores. For the international companies on an investment of 500 crores, the clawback can be around 150 odd crores. So a very lucrative scheme. The scheme is only for a 4-year period, which is which starts with 4% in the year 1 and then goes to 2% or 1%. The very peculiar thing about the scheme, and this was the first time this was bought in any of the PLIs released till now, was a requirement of backward integration or certain processes to be undertaken in India, which were mentioned as a part of the eligibility criteria for these schemes. So what the government has prescribed is that in the year 1 they don't want you to you can continue as you are doing, but in year 2 they want you to increase the amount of value addition, and they want you to do the PCB assembly in India, and should be done by yourself. And then as you go in year 3, they increase the intensity of value addition on that, and they want you to do chassis as well as power module in the year 3, not by you, but by by an Indian company. And in the year 4, there is another requirement of another value addition, and if you do that if you meet that value addition, there is an additional incentive of 2% in the year 4. So like how would you see, and I would as we come to the last scheme, you will see that the thinking of the government has been progressing in terms of they've been learning with every scheme. They've been designing scheme which is specific to every sector. And they've been taking a lot of industry consultation to ensure that this time the manufacturing which happens here is an effective manufacturing. It's not only limited to assembly, and there is a ripple effect by ensuring that if the government is spending a lot of money, there is a ripple effect or a manufacturing revolution which happens on it. Yeah. So this is this is a calculation mechanism which they've given. I think for the international companies, they've kept a threshold limit of laptops, which is more than $400. For tablets, they've kept $200 $200 as the limit, and then there is all-in-one PCs and servers. So For domestic companies, they've given that benefit. There is no threshold. Any amount or any incremental production they do in these segments will be counted towards eligible investment. One thing which the industry is asking, I think they've been asking for mobile phone also. One thing which has not been addressed in this policy is that there is no gestation period. So the investment starts from 1st of April. So whatever you invest from 1st of April, so there is no you cannot wait for getting the approval and then starting. So whatever you've invested in the year one, and this has been one of the problems which industry may face is because there is a time lag between you ordering a machinery and then the plant being ready. So that time lag is not being considered in this scheme, which makes your first year essentially a part of the first year not eligible, or you're not producing in the first year. Yeah, Bhavesh. The next one, yeah. The next one is on the pharma side. Yeah, Bhavesh, the next slide. Yeah, on the pharma side, this is this is the part 2 of the pharma policy. The part 1, which included more of the KSMs and the raw materials. Now this is the part 2 of the pharma policy, where they want to include or incentivize products which were not covered in the part 1. It's more affordable, to encourage more affordable medicines to be produced in India. What they've done, and rightly so, they've divided the group into 3 categories: Group A, B, and C, and they've divided the budget between Group A and B, C, even in the incentive. And I think why they've done it is because they also want that not all the budgets are taken by the biggies. I think it should be equally divided, or everybody should get an equal chance. So they've divided in Group A, B, and C. Group A means somebody whose global manufacturing revenue is more than 5,000 odd crores. Group B is between 500 to 5,000 odd crores, and Group C is below 500. There is a total incentive outlay which is given, which is divided between a total of 14,000 is divided between 11,000 to Group A, 2,200 on Group B, and 1,700 for the base year remains 1920, and the scheme tenure starts from 1st April 2021. Bhavish, the next slide. So right now the policy is not out; it's only an approval. The guidelines are still awaited. And this is the investment criteria. They want applications from the large players to, they want an investment of 1,000 odd crores. On the category B, the investment should be around 250 odd crores, and in category C is 50 crores. And then there is there is a set of products which you are eligible to manufacture, which is, if you see, it covers all the entire pharma sector. But what right now is happening is there is a lot of discussion, debate going on what specific medicine, what specific product is being covered, and I think it should be released shortly. And the incentive, goes up as high as 10% on the incremental sales in the year 1 to 4, and then it catered down to to 6% in the year 5 and 6. So, a great scheme, I think, got a very good response in the first sector. And then now the next one is food processing. Cabinet approval received. The guidelines are still, still pending. I think the main purpose of the scheme was primarily to make sure that the Indian food producers, India is able to create a global food production manufacturing champion. And, they selected few categories where, where they foresee that there is a high potential of export, which can be a ready to cook, ready to eat category. Then there is processed fruit, and then there is marine products, and then mozzarella. So these are the 4 categories which they selected, which, which they feel has a huge demand, obviously in India domestic as well. And there is also a potential for exports. And, that's where they wanted to, and what they've also done, in addition to giving incentive to these, these 4 categories, they've included two categories which are not yet defined, and I think which are open for an applicant to apply. One is on the innovative organic products. Now, this has not been defined. They have not set limits for this sector, and they are happy, and they are more than willing to consider an innovative or an organic product if somebody gives them a very good proposal on developing a new technology or a new product. The second different thing which they've done is that they've also wanting to give incentive on branding and marketing abroad for Indian products. So anybody who's producing and who intends to do a global export-oriented marketing, they are also willing to put in a percentage of the marketing budgets, and which is obviously a very different thought by the industry to produce or to promote Indian food sector. Yeah. So what they've done is that this is also an incremental sale. What they've also said is that any investment that you've done in 2021 will also be included. Minimum sales in every sector has been defined for ready to cook, ready to eat sector. Minimum sales is 500 odd crores and the minimum investment is 100 crores. Processed food sales is 250 and investment is 50. Marine products is 600 crores in sales and 75 crores investment. And then there is cheese, which there is a minimum investment of 23 crores. What they also want to put down as a part of the scheme, though they have not put down the percentage till now, but they want to say that you will have to achieve also a minimum growth, an average a compounded average growth of 7 to 10% in every segment in every year. So so every year that will also be a qualifying condition. And then the last one, which we spoke about on the innovative products, where there is nothing which is right now given or subscribed by them, and which is a very good opportunity for all for all new companies who are trying to develop new segments of food to apply and get. So there are a few more things, and I think they've the percentage of incentive given is very good. I think it's 10% in ready to cook, ready to eat, processed food segment, and then it is 6% in marine segment. What they've also done is that the base year calculation for the first 4 years is 2019-20. By base year means the year from which they will calculate incremental sales, and then the base year moves forward to 21-22 in the year 5 and 6. So so first 4 years the base year is constant, and then the year 5 and 6 the base year changes. Then the last one, I think it's on the branding. A branding support, which we were talking about, is that they will be eligible to put in 50% of your branding support, and everything has to be done outside India. And but there is a condition that it can be 3% of the turnover or 50 crores. So there is a cap, which they have prescribed. What additionally they have done is that they have also said that in a sector or in a particular product, Bhavish, next slide, yeah, in a particular product, they will not give anybody an incentive. So like how we were discussing, if somebody goes and commits a high incentive or a big player commits a very high number, they have said that they will not give anybody incentive which is more than 25% of the total budget of that category. So for example, in a ready to cook, ready to eat segment, nobody will get an incentive which is more than 1,000 odd crores. However, and then the lower land is 5%. So this will ensure that it is equally divided. They have spread between different players. There is nobody who's very small and who's very big, and I think it gives an equal opportunity to everybody to apply. And these are the various sector-wise segments which they have given of the total budget. So it's a breakup of the budget. And for branding and marketing, you would see there's 1,500 crores which they have allocated over a period of 6 years, which they will want to give to companies to promote the sector. Yeah. So the last one is on the white goods, and I think as the name suggests, I think all of us were expecting that this will be a scheme for white goods. However, I think the government, keeping an agenda of deeper manufacturing in India, said that it is for white goods. When they even mentioned white goods to mean air conditioners and LED lights. However, when they when the scheme was announced, this was for white goods intermediaries or components of white goods, and they didn't want to incentivize the final manufacturers of white goods. So, very clearly the agenda, the thought process of the government is to make sure that we have components or intermediaries being produced in India rather than only finished goods assembly is happening. So, very clearly thought process, only finished goods will be, merely assembly will not be, incentivized. What they've also done is that, it can be a brownfield or a greenfield project, but one company can only apply under one segment. So there are various segments. I'll come to those segments. If you have 2-3 companies, you can have different applications, but one company can only apply in one segment. And this is also a cumulative, based on incremental sales and incremental incentives. What they've also said is that if you're availing or any goods which are manufactured in this segment, only one benefit under one PLI scheme can be availed. So for example, very clearly, a lot of components are a mix of various sectors. For example, some of the components are used in auto sector as well as in this sector. So they're very clearly saying it is only specifically for that. If you apply under that, then they'll not be applied under any other PLI schemes. And they've said that they will give preference to people or investors investing in core components, and they will have a higher priority. In the scheme, unique to others, what they've also done is that they've, in every segment which they've defined, they've defined 4 segments. They've defined a category of investment, which is a normal investment, which is a low investment. And then there is also a category of high investment, where, obviously the cumulative investment commitment is slower, and also the cumulative, minimum PLI is lower. The one good thing about this scheme, which I think which should be a part of other schemes as well, was that there is a 1-year gestation period. So if you would see the table, the investment happening in 21-22, but the minimum sale or the eligibility for PLI starts in year 22-23 with the cumulative sale. So you get time to first get approval, then set up your plant and then start manufacturing. So which is something which was an ask of industry, and I think the ministry is listened to this in this scheme. The incentive is starts from 6%, then goes up to 4% in the year 5. And if you see the minimum investment, depending on the component, it starts from 50 crores or 300 crores, for high value intermediaries or sub assemblies or a combination thereof. And it's 300 for the normal investment and 600 for the large investments. So on this, the minimum PLI which they intend to give is around 120 crores or 60 crores to 120 crores in this segment. Similarly, for aluminum foil, Q-tube compressors, there is, the investment limit is 250 for a normal one, 400 for the large one. And, the incentive is 80 crores. So this is the minimum PLI. I think depending on how many applicants come in, this number can go up. There will be a ceiling PLI, which will also be prescribed, which can be as high as 50% of your investment when this is, when this is announced in the guidelines. The next segment is on, on the LED segment. So on the LED also, they have core components like chips, packing resistors, ICs, where they're saying the minimum investment is 100 crores with an incentive of 24 odd crores, and then the maximum incentive or maximum investment is 300 crores, and with an incentive of 72 odd crores. So like I said, good scheme, very very focused on certain high value, high volume components, which are there, which currently a lot of it is dependent on imports outside India, and to promote the manufacturing here, the government is trying to incentivize manufacturers. Over to you, Bhavesh. I'm done. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Kunal. And probably now what we can talk is about the state level incentives in India. So largely, if you see how state incentives do work, so just to probably clarify, this is over and above the subsidies, what Saurabh and Kunal discussed, it is over and above the PLI scheme or the other schemes also. So largely, if you see in India, state incentives will be given in three buckets. So that is how the three buckets of what we have shown on the screen. So one is the capital link subsidy, where you get a certain percentage of the project cost back as a subsidy. So this can be a percentage of 5% or 10%, ranging up to 25% also. It may have an upper cap. So you have other states which are coming up with new policies like Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat, which are giving a capital link kind of a subsidy. The second ones are the expenditure link kind of subsidies, which are largely prevalent in, I will say, all the states. So this is like talking about your reduction in your stamp duty or reduction in your power costs or your electricity duties. So some for some units which have a huge power cost, this can be a very good subsidy to look at. And third and the biggest component of the state subsidies would be the sales linked ones. So here it is talking about a percentage of a project cost which will come back to you over a period of 8 to 10 years and the reimbursement will be in the form of taxes. What you contribute to the state government will come back to you as a subsidy. So just giving a small example here. So suppose your project cost is 100 and in your zone, if it is talking about that you will get a subsidy of 60%. So you will get 60 back over a period of 10 years by way of taxes. What you pay to the state government will come back to you as a subsidy, subject to a limit of 60, what we discussed. So this is, I guess, the largest component of the subsidy which comes from the state. And now states have been very progressive and they have tried to delink this from taxes, and we will discuss that aspect also. So if you largely see of these three buckets which are there in the state subsidy, this would result in almost, I will say, minimum 50 to 75, almost 100% of the project cost also coming back as a subsidy over a 10 or a 15-year period, depends from state to states. And let me add over here, all the states and union territories do have industrial policies, and they also have sector-specific policies which can be actually availed. So it will largely depend on location in the state. So if you are talking about Maharashtra, so whether if you are setting up a plant in Bombay or Pune as compared to a plant in Aurangabad or Nagpur, so obviously the subsidy would be higher in Aurangabad or Nagpur because that's the underdeveloped part of the state. So that is something what we need to evaluate. Second is the sector, what we need to see. So if there is a sector specific policy which is there in the state, naturally there will be a higher benefit. So if the state has an electronic manufacturing policy, it will have a larger benefit as compared to what the normal industrial policy would be. So that is something we need to keep in mind. Third is obviously the sale pattern, like where are you setting up the factory and what is your sale of that in that state rather. So if you're manufacturing in Maharashtra and none of your sale is in Maharashtra, your availment of the subsidy would be very less because the state will only give you SGST back and not the whole GST. So that is something what we need to keep in mind. And obviously expenditure linked subsidies which are there. Now, some of the operative criteria what we need to be clear of is probably, and there's a huge discussion on the newspapers if you see nowadays, the concept of local labor which is there, which states have started bringing up in that policies, so which needs to be looked at. And also a very important concept of mega project. So normally if you see, states do have a normal industrial policy which is given to all enterprises. There is no minimum limit. Rather, I will say the incentives in some cases in MSME as higher as compared to the larger investment. But if you breach the limit and of a mega project, so mega project will be something based on investment and something based on labor also, or either of both. So then you can negotiate with the state government on incentives. So you can say how this project is helpful to you and how we should be actually given benefits over and above what is there in the policy. So largely, if you see in this era of competitive federalism, what we see, these are what are the subsidies on the left side, what you see, these are the subsidies which are largely given by all the state governments, I would say. You have the SGST, the capital subsidy, electricity duty, stamp duty. And what you need to actually do is compare the state policies of who gives the best, looking at your industry, your sale pattern, your expenditure pattern. So the focus what I'm trying to put out here is let's not look at the larger percentage. what a state offers. Let's see what is the actual availment, what you can get out of this. So though a state may say, I will give you 100% back, we need to actually see to the T what will be the amount, what you can expect over a 10 or a 12-year period. If you look at this, as we discussed the era of competitive federalism, here you are seeing that there is a lot of competition, and you have this 4-5 states which have come up with ahead of the curve policy, if I want to say. So if you look at Maharashtra, Maharashtra is giving you a gross SGST reimbursement instead of a net SGST reimbursement. So that's a huge change. So even if you have a limited sale in that state, you will have a gross SGST coming back to you. Then you look at Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, which we discussed, comes back as a capital subsidy. So Gujarat, whatever is the project cost, you will get 4% to 12% of the project cost back as a subsidy. We would have loved if that percentage was a bit higher, but this is what it is. Madhya Pradesh talks of almost 25 to 28% of the project cost coming back as a subsidy. Interestingly, Jammu and Kashmir recently, it has gone live on 1st April 2021, has come up with a very, very good policy where you are getting 300% of the eligible project cost of the plant and machinery back as a subsidy. And they will be reimbursing in the form of gross SGST, CGST, and IGST. So you will actually ensure there is some availment out of this. So these are, I will say, some examples of ahead of the curve policies. The awareness of what we see is state incentives is quite low. I will say of all the investors, hardly 20-30% people are really aware that there are these policies. So keep an eye on what these policies do offer. And as I tell, this will be over and above the other packages or the other PLI or the central government scheme, what we saw. There's also one more interesting manufacturing and other operations in warehouse regulations, which is also a very, very good scheme, I would say. This is under the customs. So this came along with the notification of Make in India when they looked at the competitive income tax rate. So the intention here was for companies to encourage to make in India. So when you are importing machinery, the intention was to make it tax-free. So it's kind of a deferral what you need to look at. So by explaining by a simple example here, what you see, so suppose your CIF value of the imported of capital goods is 100, your normal basic custom duty is 7.5 and your social welfare is 10% and you have a IGST. Normally when you import these goods, you would have paid 127.75. That's a normal example what we have taken here. In this scheme, so don't go by this word of warehouse. You need not build up a separate warehouse or something. This can be a demarcated area in your factory itself. So if you demarcate this area and you get this manufacturing and bonded warehouse license, you do not pay the duty at all. You don't pay the basic custom duty or the other duties we discussed. So when do you pay this? You actually pay this when you are clearing this capital goods. So assuming that the capital goods, take an example of capital goods, they have a useful life for 10 or 15 years, as the case may be, depending on industry to industry. So when you are disposing of this capital goods or clearing this capital goods after 10 to 15 years, at that point of time, you pay the duty. And it will be the same duty what he had saved originally. So look at the interest cost, what you have saved for that 10 or 15 years, and also the value of money, obviously the diminishing value of money, what we are looking for. And the same scheme is not only for capital goods, it is also eligible for raw materials. But the raw materials, the duty would be paid when you clear it for production. So it may be depending on your production cycle or your lead time, it should be 1 or 2 months saving. But I will say the larger saving would be for capital goods. The important aspects what we need to look at, it is applicable to existing manufacturing facilities also. So don't look at if you are coming up with a newer expansion or something or a greenfield, it will also be available for brownfield. There is no investment commitment. The biggest part over here is this has no export and NFE obligation. So if you look at the EPCG scheme, which was prevalent, which talks about exports to be committed at 6 times of what the duty has been saved, here you are talking of no export and NFE obligation. There is no interest implications on the deferred customs duty. So initially there was I will say a lukewarm response to this. But now if you see, this came in October 2019, but now if you see in the last 6 or 8 months, this has gathered quite some momentum and people have been claiming this benefits and getting this licenses under the mover scheme. And as I told, this is over and above the two what we discussed. So probably we heard about PLI, we heard about the state incentives, and you also saw about Mover. So I guess the key investment considerations which we need to look at is first is obviously the entity structure, like whether it is a private limited vis-a-vis a LLP. You have this reduced corporate tax benefit if you are able to, if the entity is formed after October 2019 and you are able to start your commercial production before 31st March 2023, you can actually avail a reduced corporate tax benefit, which talks of the basic rate as 15%, and along with surcharges, it will come to around 17.15% or something of that sort. But still, I will say this will be a much, much competitive rate, and this was actually brought in to negate the effect of what we see in the ASEAN countries where you have a corporate tax benefit. So here you will have to decide, because whether you want to get into the corporate structure or a LLP structure, keeping in mind this, obviously this private limited corporate tax benefit which has been given, or rather a corporate tax benefit which has been given. You'll also have to look at the existing unutilized capacities, because it cannot be that you will be shifting an undertaking and trying to get this benefit. So this will be on the entity structuring. Obviously, you will have to look at financing option, whether you want to debt or ECB or equity, which sectors FDI is being allowed or which sectors there is a restriction. And obviously, some of the states do offer an interest subsidy also if you are going for a debt from a local commercial bank or a scheduled commercial bank in India. So that is something also what we need to look at. And the locational analysis, clearly like state incentives, or whether you're looking at manufacturing under free trade zone. And if you look at all these mega project subsidies, what we are looking at, as we told, we can actually negotiate. So if we come up with a project plan and employment and whatever sale pattern is, you need to work out to the T that whether you will get a higher incentive in Maharashtra as compared to a Gujarat or as compared to a Tamil Nadu. Then talk to the state governments on the various incentives which can be offered, and obviously negotiate to get the best pack out of here. Key considerations, I will say, for PLI applications would be, as most of the schemes have gone live, I will say 5 schemes have gone live and 5 are in there, and it will largely depend on how the next month or so turns up with various guidelines and these things coming up. So readiness of the facility and most of the benefit will start from April 21. That's the first year on which most of the schemes benefit will start. So whether you want to buy this investment, new plant and machinery or second hand, evaluate the eligible expenditure, because land will not be considered as an eligible expenditure in most of the PLIs. So it will be plant and machinery, the building, the R&D. So all this expenditure related things also need to be looked at. And obviously the other parameters, like what will be the value addition, whether it is by self or third party manufacturers, export plans, employment generations. And this is not a free end scheme, if I want to say. So it is not that once you are eligible under this category, you are clearly you will be getting the benefit under this. So there may be ranking system in most of the schemes. So you will have to prepare a sort of a DPR which highlights the importance of your project and how this can work. So these are some of the factors which we need to keep in mind while we are looking at the PLI schemes, and obviously the whole investment considerations, what we need to look at. So the intention here is to look at the whole CAPEX agenda and have a holistic view when you are thinking of investing in India, to look at the PLI scheme, the sector-specific state schemes, the industrial schemes, the mover scheme. There's also FTA, project import. So let's have a holistic view when we are evaluating whether importing machinery or India, or even the domestic manufacturers if they want to expand in India. So that was the intention largely. And probably now with some time in hand, we can take some questions here if there are some questions from participants. So probably I'll request Kunal Saurabh also to take some questions if he can, with the time what we have in hand. So Kunal, if you can take the white goods one, there is one question which is come there.
Yeah, so I think the question is in the PLI schemes, investment will be considered with the base year of 1920, whether investment already made in 2021 will be considered in financial year 21-22. I think in this scenario, I think whatever you invest after 1st of April 21 will be considered. it will not be, any investment done in 2021 will not be considered. I think what they've done is that they've, because 2021 for sales was a year where nothing happened. So so that's why they've excluded 2021. So sales is 1920, and an investment is 2021 onwards.
So if there are any other questions, you can type it in the chat box out here. Yeah, there is one question which has come. Saurabh, you want to take this?
So the guidelines for the food processing sector, the draft is nearly ready, and the final guideline should come in next 10 to 15 days time. Of course, we all need to be mindful of the fact that majority of the government people and the bureaucrats are busy to manage the COVID situation in Delhi and across the country. So there may be some delays, but whatever we are hearing is that the draft has been deliberated upon, and next 10 to 15 days max, it should be out.
There's one more question which has come, that there is no scheme for agrochemicals. So yes, that's correct. Of the all 13 sectors, just now we don't have a scheme for agrochemicals. But once you also understand that there are almost 6 sectors which have been identified, and looking at the response of this 13 sectors, there will be 6 sectors which have been identified, and chemicals is surely one of them. And we should say some action on how these scheme progress probably by the end of this year or somewhere. But toys, chemicals is something what we are aware of, that a lot of deliberations are happening around the release of these schemes also.
So I think I'll pick the next question. Any idea when the auto PLI scheme will be rolled out? Of course, we all have been waiting around the auto PLI scheme. There have been a lot of representations which have been made by various companies around this particular scheme. What we hear is that it is doing some rounds in the interministerial level, inter-ministries level, and likely it should take some time of around 30 more days. So you should expect that by 31st May, the auto PLI will be out. Again, at the cost of repetition, I'd like to highlight that auto PLI scheme has got completely revamped. So whatever you would have heard maybe 15 days back, all those things have undergone a change. So whatever is coming out in the media, there has been a number of changes as far as the auto PLI scheme is concerned.
Yeah, so the next question here is, if a manufacturer is comfortable with fulfilling EO under EPCG, would you still recommend mover? So I will say yes, obviously, if you are fulfilling the export obligations under EPCG, EPCG is obviously a permanent kind of an exemption, whereas mover is more of a deferral. So obviously EPCG will score over that. But with constant renewal in the FTP and what is going to be the shelf life of EPCG also needs to be seen. But if you're looking at standalone, I will say obviously if you're comfortable of fulfilling the EO under EPCG, that would be something to look forward.
Yeah, and to add on what Bhavesh is saying, EPCG is to a very limited set of capital goods. However, under mover, it is for non-capital goods and raw materials. So definitely, I think an evaluation on what is more beneficial needs to be done.
So Kunal, what is your take on EPCG on second-hand capital goods? I believe it's not available on second-hand capital goods as well. So,
yeah, agree. So even on even on that extent, I think mover definitely is better. Yeah.
Saurabh, you want to take probably the last one, which is for a right PLI. You want to take that one because we have already run out of time.
So see, let's look at the intent of all these policies. The intent of PLI has been to make India as a world-class manufacturing hub, and we should export out of the country. So overall intent has been the same, but of course the incentive in all the PLI schemes have been given on incremental sales. But if we look at the consumption mass, or if we look at the targets of sales which they are giving under majority of these schemes, you will necessarily be required to export. But of course, they are incentivizing export plus domestic together by giving a particular rate. So there's say 4%, 6% rates under various schemes. But similarly, if you look at our auto PLI scheme, while they're not giving you any incentive on the incremental local sale, but the rates under the auto PLI schemes are by far higher compared to many other schemes. So overall in auto PLI, if you are under a say if you are manufacturing electronic vehicles and are manufacturing them and shipping it out from India, you can look at a 18% incentive. So 18% is a very big number compared to any other scheme which is talking about 2 or 4% or 6%. So to that extent, auto is the only scheme where they are giving it on incremental export, and that too has a multiplier effect, whereas in all other schemes, it's on incremental sales, whether domestic or exports. Back to you, Bhavesh.
Yeah. So, right, there are still some questions and we'll ensure we answer each one of them, though in paucity of time, we have already crossed the hour, and thank you for your patient hearing. And it was a pleasure on behalf of EY to actually cover all the schemes which were there. And I'm sure we'll get more and more chances to interact with you. And as soon as the PLI and the other schemes, more details come up, we'll be happy to interact with you again. So thank you for your patient hearing, and we also thank IVCA for giving us an opportunity to speak to the audience. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Bye-bye.